I don't speak your crazy coffee language. Just give me the 2 biggest cups of regular coffee you serve, I said to the young barista at the Starbucks next door to my house. The kid looked to be in his early 20s. In fact, they all looked to be in their early 20s. Heck, I could hardly remember myself being their age myself. It didn't take him long to pour me 2 cups of coffee after I paid for my order in cash. What was left for him to do was to give me my change. But that's where the kid faltered. He wrinkled his nose in pain as he had to count the money twice. I could see that he was angry with me for not paying with a credit card like everyone else. Well, sue me for being obsolete. Yeah. That's how bad I am, and I'm not gonna change. I took those 2 cups of coffee along with my 57-year-old ass, to a vacant table in the back of the coffee shop. I only had to wait a couple minutes before she walked in, looked around for me, and headed for the seat I was occupying. I have to admit, internally, I boiled over at how outrageously good she looked for her age. She was the same age as me, but looked about 10 years younger. She had obviously been to the gym and had lost about 5 pounds in the time I hadn't seen her. Her hair, masterfully styled as always by her personal hairdresser, still held the charm of her gorgeous golden blonde hair. I didn't do my due courtesy and jumped up from my chair when she approached. Like hell, I didn't. She was still lucky I'd finally agreed to see her 5 years after our divorce. Couldn't you have picked some normal place that made real coffee? I asked her instead of greeting her with a certain amount of disgust in my voice. Jesus, Tracy, those kids couldn't make a good cup of regular coffee even if Juan Valdez were here to show them how to do it right. She smiled nervously, sitting down in the chair across from me. I don't want to fight, Ben, she began quietly, choosing her words carefully. I just want to finally to get some closure. You don't have to tell me. I know I screwed up so badly. I kind of realized it then, and I definitely know it now. I took you for granted. I took you for granted. I took your kindness for weakness. I made us turn into me because I was, what can I say? I was such a selfish bitch. Tracy admitted. In the evenings, I sit alone in my apartment and watch something on TV. I can't even tell you what's on. I'm alone. I have no one to talk to. Ben, I miss our conversation so much. I miss just the sound of your voice, and it doesn't even matter what you're talking about. I miss all the insignificant little things, the fleeting touches, the occasional smile. I was always sure that me and you, that we would be together until the end. Even when I did what I did, I still thought we'd be together for years to come. I didn't interrupt her, letting her express what had apparently been building up inside her for a long time and needed to come out. I just listened. I never thought for a minute that I'd be caught. I fell for a skilled seducer. She hesitated, and then she hurried to correct herself. No, that's not quite true. Yes, he was a skilled seducer, but not that I fell for his charms, she faltered. I guess I went after him willingly because I was so stupid, and selfish idiot. Tracy said all of this, studying her cup of coffee uninterruptedly. Throughout her monologue, she never once raised her eyes to me. As she paused in the flow of words and brought the cup to her lips, I stared at her in silence. How many times in our 27 years of marriage had I kissed those still beautifully contoured lips? I faltered when I suddenly realized that she was now looking at me as if waiting for a response. It was you who asked to meet, and this is your story you wanted to tell, I said. I've asked to see you many times since you filed for divorce. Why did you agree to it now? She asked, putting the cup back on the table. Because it took me all this time to get to the point where I could talk to you without feeling like I wanted to strangle you, I answered honestly enough. I loved you with all my soul, and maybe I still do a little. You betrayed my love. And for what? For cheap sex. Well, you've had your fill of it. Besides throwing away your love, you betrayed my trust. What did I do to deserve all this? I asked her the question that had plagued me for so long. Nothing. She answered quietly. It's not your fault. It happened because of me. It's on me. I wish I could pretend that by now, I was done with this long stretch of my life and didn't need answers. Yes. I wish I could pretend that I had left it all behind, but that would be far from the truth. They say the opposite of love is not hate but indifference. I still hadn't overcome my hatred, but I was on my way to indifference. Alright, then tell me how it happened. And most importantly, tell me why it happened, I said, pushing my barely sipped coffee aside and continuing our conversation with was a few years late. The why is simple. She began with a sigh. I had just turned 50 and I was feeling a little old, a little unwanted. You know, it enters your life so subtly, seemingly quite unnoticed. In recent years, when I've walked into a room, men's heads haven't turned in my direction as often as they used to. I know, she added hastily, you have always told me and shown me that I am the most beautiful to you, but it's just that sometimes we women want to be appreciated by other people. I think Edward saw that I needed him. Tracy continued after a short pause. We'd been co-workers for years, and we talked occasionally, but suddenly somehow, he became my best friend. We started talking almost every day, and our conversations grew deeper, more personal. Edward was a good-looking guy and several single women from the office had gone on dates with him, giving him high marks. I knew he was a player, but I thought I was in control. Well, apparently, I was wrong. So just like that, you just picked up and threw her away? I asked, feeling my stomach start to twist into a tight, cold knot. Well, it didn't happen that fast, she answered. We'd had lunch together a few times, dinner once or twice. When I told you I was working late, and many times, we just had coffee. I knew where he was going with his game, and I still went with him. How long has this been going on, Tracy? I wheezed through a suddenly dry throat. About a year, I guess, she answered. When he finally got me into bed, it was exciting. He was new, different from you, and it felt so wrong. I guess that's why I got over my guilt pretty quickly. Besides, since you didn't suspect anything, how could it hurt you? It's not like I ever gave you less, and I've never done anything to him that I wouldn't do to you. Tracy sighed again, pulling the napkin from its holder and squeezing it in her fingers. I know it sounds corny, Ben, but it was really just sex. Yes, we had fun, but love wasn't even in question. There never was. So you're saying that your fun in bed outweighed our marriage vows? Just perfect. I grinned wryly. Things were going pretty smoothly, and you wouldn't have known anything if it hadn't been for the nerd on the block, she said, with undisguised annoyance. If it weren't for him, we'd still be married and we'd both be much happier. Why couldn't we just go back to when things were good between us? I was only able to catch it because my retired neighbor Ralph Gordon called me one day to report that my wife and some unknown man had entered my house in the middle of the day and he thought it looked pretty strange. Upon receiving this signal, I immediately jumped in my car and 20 minutes later found Tracy and Edward cheating in my marital bed. I interrupted the couple's pleasure ride by slamming the back of his head with the back of my fist, causing their heads to collide like billiard balls and giving them both concussions. I yelled, hovering over the shrinking couple for about 5 more minutes before I gave the fucker one last hearty kick and slammed the door. Because we were over the minute I found out you cheated on me, a single I'm sorry can't erase the damage done. I told the not-so-smart woman, I made a mistake. A big mistake. I know you've made mistakes in your life too. Did you have to go nuclear? We could have gotten through it. The two of us, Tracy said in a pleading voice. I don't think so. I hissed. We were married for 27 years. What makes you think I'm going to give you my blessing for a year-long left-handed affair? Okay, I understand. But this happened 5 years ago. 5 years, Ben, you're alone now. I'm alone. Our kids are mad at both of us. Why can't we try again? We've had 27 good years together. Tracy kept trying to convince me. I wonder what she was counting on. To be exact, I corrected her, we had 26 good years together. I can't say about the last year that it's been good for me. And you know that what you did was a betrayal, whether I found out about it or not, I added. By the way, what happened to your lover after I left? Tracy raised the cup to her lips again and sipped some more coffee. She could see that I was staring at her intently, but she still couldn't keep from flinching for a second. A few months later, he left her for someone else, younger and prettier. I told you it was just sex, not love, she said, as if she was struggling to get the words out of her mouth. Yeah. Just a recreational fuck with someone else's wife, I replied laconically, and she looked away staring at the ceiling fan. Did I deserve such disrespect from you? No. You didn't. She whispered. I got up and brought each of us a second cup of over-roasted bitter coffee. Somehow it seemed that the disgusting flavor of this drink was a perfect match for our conversation. Over the past 5 years, Tracy and I had been fairly reliable at portraying mutual affability the few times we'd met at family events, but I'd never been alone with her or engaged in station. Lord knows she tried hard to get me to talk to her, but I definitely managed to avoid any potentially dangerous situations, both for her and myself. I still wasn't sure I wouldn't snap her neck if we were alone or just break down in a humiliating puddle of tears. At times, I felt the urge to vent my emotions in one way or another almost every minute of the day. Surprisingly, the only place I didn't miss Tracy was the bedroom, considering that in all 27 years of marriage, I had never once looked lustfully at other women. I had no idea about the modern nighttime habits of the American male age 50+. Soberly assessing my credentials, I figured that for someone like me, the likely choices in the female fish pond would be quite small. What do you want from a regular guy of average looks and average height, who makes fairly average money and can't boast that his tool is as impressively long and thick as a donkey's? Damn it. I was surprised and partly even dumbfounded when single women started appearing around me from everywhere, sometimes seemingly out of thin air, and many of them were not at all shy about what they wanted from me. I was completely unaware that there were far more single ladies over 50 than single men. And that many single men over 50 seemed to gravitate toward younger women, resulting in fewer available choices of available male, free partners of the same age for single women 50. Add to that the decency and sociability factors as well, and the odds go heavily in favor of those men over 50 who aren't afraid to meet and talk to strange women. This has never been a problem for me, so over the past 5 years, I've had as much variety of female companionship as I've wanted. Who would have thought? I also had a choice about what kind of contact with ladies I wanted, short-term or long-term. Not every woman was looking for her next husband. Some of my new female friends, as well as some of the men, were only interested in diversifying their lives for a while. As for me, I dated both types. It was not my goal to necessarily find the next Mrs. Ben Arnston, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind if a lady worthy of it magically appeared in front of me. The one thing that was absolutely out of the question was the return of Tracy Arnston to my life. How does that saying go? Been there, done that, ripped my heart out of my chest, and adorned my t-shirt with the trophy. So why are you alone, Tracy? I asked with some surprise. You still look great, so finding a man shouldn't be a problem for you, and you're obviously not shy about meeting men, she gasped. And for the first time, I felt ashamed that I had insulted her. Actually, I didn't mean it that way, and you know it. I corrected myself. Tracy snorted resentfully, but then had to admit that I was right. Maybe I don't want to date another man. Maybe I've come to the conclusion that I've already met the right man, lost him, but now I want him back. She said, I know what I did to you was wrong. Terribly wrong. But I also know you're a good man who believes in forgiveness. I know you believe that because I know you better than anyone. It took all my self-control not to raise my voice in the cafeteria. You're a smart woman, Tracy. Don't you ever think about what would happen if you got caught? I growled through my teeth. No. I never thought I'd be caught. She replied, we shouldn't have brought it into our house. I admit it was a mistake, but it was the only time we ever did it there. Edward had been encouraging me to do it in our bed for weeks. Your bed, I knew what he wanted, Aya. I just finally weakened and gave in to his persuasion. Now I think what Ralph was really doing was being a good friend when he told you about me. I know a lot of people just wouldn't have gotten involved. Tracy paused a little while waiting for my reaction, but never waiting for a response. She sighed again and continued her confession. In the cold light of day, the words "I'm sorry" don't even come close to what I'm feeling. God, I've been so stupid and arrogant in so many ways, but for all that, Ben, I want you back. I need you. Please, Ben, I'll beg for it if I have to. Her voice was close to a sob, and there was a note of desperation in it. I shook my head negatively with only a small amount of sympathy for her obvious brokenness as Tracy scrutinized my face for what the answer would be. My words didn't sound triumphant or satisfied with revenge. No. I was merely stating what was obvious to me. Please, Tracy, don't embarrass us both. How about you put my feelings ahead of your own for now? Exactly what you should have done 5 years ago. Actions have consequences. Alas, you've forgotten that. I quipped. Tracy sniffled, tears threatening to roll from her eyes. You're right. Again, she said, and the flame of hope in her eyes faded. I won't bother you anymore. There was a time when that wistful look would have prompted me to stand up and take her into a heartfelt embrace. I actually felt a pang of pain for both of us as I watched her stand up and walk out of the coffee shop without waiting for a reaction from me. I watched Tracy's silhouette walk away and then watched the door close behind her for another long moment, until a well-dressed woman in her 50s came to my table and put a cup of latte with salted caramel in front of me. I know. You hate our coffee, so I want you to leave on a delicious note, the woman said with a bright smile on her face. You didn't tell her, did you? Just in case, she clarified. I didn't want to completely tear her soul apart. Yes, there was a time when I longed to destroy her. But someone convinced me that I was better than that, though I still have my doubts, if that's really true, I replied, smiling involuntarily myself. As she rounded the table, the woman sat on my lap, wrapped one arm around my neck and kissed me softly. I furtively glanced at the wedding ring glistening on her left hand. In 2 months, Sandy Caruso and I would be married. I have no doubts, and unlike the last Mrs. Ben Arnston, this good man will always come first in my life, she said, with conviction. I know what it's like to lose the person closest to you. I watched one of them fade away in the hospital from cancer 10 years ago. That's why I will always put my man first. She could giving me another endlessly loving kiss. I noticed a few of the cafe employees walking around the lounge in the background smirking as they saw me kissing their boss. The employees had never met me before because, like I said, I don't drink Starbucks coffee, even though I have a crush on the franchise owner. I never really thought much about karma until I met Sandy on a bike ride about 2 years ago. I hadn't ridden a bike since I was a kid, but after my divorce, I had a lot of free time on my hands. I went to the gym regularly to keep in shape, but I didn't really enjoy the cardio workouts there. When we were still with Tracy, I once suggested we buy bicycles and start riding together, but she wasn't interested. Once I was single, as a cleansing shake-up to my post-marital life, I decided to get a nice road bike and hit the road. I mostly rode alone but occasionally joined organized group rides amongst other similar health enthusiasts. Admittedly, I wasn't very good at finding John Henry II signposts, and during one such ride, I foolishly lost my way. While I was looking around trying to figure out which way to pedal, this woman pulled up beside me and asked if I was on the ride. When I replied that I was, she chuckled melodiously. Then you need to turn your ass around and ride back with me because you missed the right turn about a half-mile back, said the trim stranger. I did as she instructed, and when I turned my bike around, she was right in front of me. I watched with excited excitement as a more than gorgeous ass, tightly encased in stretchy spandex bike shorts, danced in front of my eyes while her mistress pedaled vigorously, standing up from time to time in the saddle. Hey, genius. Stop staring at my ass and catch up with me so we can talk like adults while we ride, she said to me with a very understanding smirk. For the next 36 miles, We rode side by side at a relaxed pace and told each other stories about our lives. I told her about my cheating wife, and she told me about her late husband who died of cancer. We both talked about our grown children. We each had 2 and our grandchildren. Sandy had 3 already, and I had only 1 so far. The total distance of our ride that day was 52 miles. The longest distance I had ever ridden before was 35 miles, but with a beautiful and interesting partner, all those miles flew by. We had a date the next night despite the fact that my leg muscles were incredibly sore, and I was moving through space with some difficulty. 2 weeks later, our relationship became exclusive. And on our 4th date, we shared a bed. My days as an older single playboy were over. A whole life full of new colors and experiences was ahead of me, and the love of a wonderful lady who made my heart beat again.